Halloween has always been a night of fear and fun, a time when we willingly invite the eerie and the unknown into our lives. But for some, Halloween 2024 was a night where the boundary between the living and the supernatural blurred, leaving behind terrifying stories that no one could have expected. From haunted houses to ghostly apparitions, these real-life events defy explanation and force us to confront the terrifying possibility that something out there is watching us. As we dive into these spine-chilling tales, prepare to be drawn into a world where the macabre is real, the supernatural is palpable, and safety is a fleeting memory. Each story will leave you more captivated than the last, as you realize that sometimes the scariest things aren't just in our imaginations, they're real. The night was cool and foggy, with the wind whispering through the cracks of the old asylum's walls. This abandoned structure, notorious for its history of psychiatric abuse, was a popular spot for ghost hunters. On Halloween night, 2024, a group of 5 paranormal enthusiasts, armed with night vision cameras and spirit boxes, ventured into the asylum, excited to document what they believed were restless spirits. Things started innocently enough: faint knocks, cold drafts, and the occasional whisper that couldn't be traced. But when they reached the second floor, the air grew heavy, as if the building itself was watching them.
Suddenly, one of the group members, Tom, wandered into a room alone. Moments later, the others heard a loud crash and rushed to the room, only to find it empty. Tom had disappeared.
Hours passed, and despite calling out for him and retracing their steps, there was no sign of Tom. His phone was later found on the floor, still recording, but all that could be heard was eerie static. The group fled the asylum, terrified. Local authorities searched the asylum and surrounding areas for days, but found no trace of Tom. To this day, his disappearance remains a mystery. The abandoned asylum became a hotspot for paranormal investigators, but none could provide answers. Some say Tom was taken by the spirits of former patients. Others believe he fell victim to the asylum's cursed history. The truth? No one will ever know. Parties and Halloween go hand in hand, but for one group of friends in New Orleans, their celebration turned into a living nightmare. It was supposed to be a casual Halloween house party, complete with costumes, music, and the obligatory Ouija board.
The host, eager to entertain, suggested they contact the spirit world for fun. At first, nothing happened. The planchette barely moved, and most of the guests laughed it off. But then, the room grew cold. The lights began to flicker, and before they knew it, objects in the room started shifting on their own. A glass fell from the table and shattered. Candles blew out simultaneously, sending everyone into a panic. The final straw was when a large mirror, hanging securely on the wall, suddenly cracked from top to bottom, as if struck by an invisible force.
Guests screamed and ran from the house, leaving the once lively party in utter chaos. The host, shaken, claimed he saw a shadowy figure standing behind him just before the mirror shattered. Police were called, but they found no evidence of an intruder. Some believed it was a prank gone wrong, but many insisted it was something far more sinister. This incident became a viral sensation, with locals dubbing it the poltergeist party. Paranormal experts weighed in, claiming that Halloween is the perfect time for spirits to cross into our world, especially when Ouija boards are involved. Whatever the cause, one thing is certain: the attendees of that party will never play with the supernatural again. Haunted house attractions are meant to scare us, but they're also supposed to be fake. At least, that's what everyone thought before Halloween 2024. In Ohio, a well-known haunted house attraction advertised itself as the scariest haunted house you'll ever experience. What they didn't know was that the attraction had a dark past. The building itself had once been the site of a series of mysterious deaths in the 1950s.
The owners of the attraction leaned into this history, using it as part of their marketing to draw crowds. On Halloween night, 2024, guests began to report strange occurrences that went beyond the planned scares. I remember feeling an intense cold as I walked through a hallway that wasn't part of the attraction's set. I heard whispers, but when I turned around, no one was there.
Others claimed to have seen shadowy figures moving in rooms that were supposed to be empty. The most frightening moment came when a guest fainted after reportedly seeing a ghostly figure in an old-fashioned dress approach them. Paramedics were called, and the haunted house was temporarily shut down. Later investigations revealed that the attraction had been built on the foundations of a house where a family had died under mysterious circumstances. Whether the strange happenings were a result of the building's haunted history or just an overactive imagination on Halloween night, the haunted house attraction was never the same again. In a small town in rural England, the annual Halloween parade is a beloved tradition. But this year, something otherworldly joined the procession. As the parade made its way down the street, children in costumes and parents with cameras watched excitedly.
But amidst the costumes and decorations, a figure stood out. A person in an old-fashioned Victorian outfit that no one seemed to recognize.
At first, people assumed it was part of the show, but as the figure walked through the crowd, something was off. The person didn't speak, didn't interact, and seemed to glide more than walk. As the parade came to an end, a few spectators noticed something chilling. The figure vanished into thin air. Multiple people reported seeing the same figure, but no one could explain where it came from or where it went. The incident was covered by local news, and several eyewitnesses came forward with their stories. Some claimed it was a trick of the light, while others believed they had seen a genuine ghost. The town has long been associated with paranormal sightings, but this was the first time an apparition had made such a public appearance. Halloween costumes are all about transformation, but one family's experience with a second-hand costume turned into a nightmare. In Texas, a mother bought her son a pirate costume from a local thrift store. The boy, excited to wear it, put it on immediately. But something was wrong. Within minutes, he started to behave strangely, speaking in a deep voice that wasn't his own. His parents initially thought he was playing, but as the night wore on, his behavior became more disturbing. He claimed to see shadowy figures around the house and refused to take off the costume. His eyes seemed to glaze over, and he spoke in a language they didn't recognize.
In a panic, his mother tried to remove the costume, but the boy screamed and fought back. The family, terrified, burned the costume in the backyard. Almost immediately, the boy returned to normal with no memory of what had happened. Paranormal experts suggested that the costume may have been cursed or possessed by a spirit. Whether or not that's true, the family vows never to buy secondhand Halloween costumes again.
There's something about cemeteries that naturally evokes fear, but for a group of teenagers in Massachusetts, that fear became all too real on Halloween night. The group had decided to explore an old abandoned cemetery that was rumored to be haunted. Armed with flashlights and cameras, they set out to find some scares, but what they encountered was far more terrifying than they could have imagined. As they wandered through the graveyard, one of the teens noticed a tall, dark figure standing between two gravestones. At first, they thought it was a trick of the light, but the figure began to move, slowly, deliberately toward them. Panic set in and the group fled, but the figure seemed to follow them, disappearing and reappearing in the distance.
One of the teens, Jason, claimed that the figure followed him home. That night, he experienced sleep paralysis for the first time, and standing at the foot of his bed was the same dark figure he had seen in the cemetery. Paranormal investigators later told the group they had likely encountered a shadow person, a phenomenon often associated with hauntings and malevolent spirits.
The Halloween seance that went too far. Seances are a popular Halloween activity, but for one group of friends in Florida, their attempt to contact the dead ended in disaster.
The group had gathered in a house known for its haunted reputation, eager to see if they could communicate with the spirits rumored to reside there. The seance started off as expected, candles flickering, strange sounds in the distance, but things quickly escalated when one participant, Lisa, began convulsing.
She spoke in a voice that wasn't hers, claiming to be possessed by the spirit of a woman who had died in the house. The other participants, horrified, tried to end the seance, but the energy in the room grew darker and more oppressive.
Lisa later claimed she had no memory of the events, but her friends were shaken by what they had witnessed. Paranormal experts suggested that the seance had opened a doorway to the spirit world, allowing something malevolent to enter.
Whether it was possession or psychological stress, the group has sworn off any future paranormal activities. The vanishing trick-or-treater. In a quiet suburban neighborhood in Colorado, a young boy dressed as a ghost went missing on Halloween.
Halloween has long been associated with the eerie and the mysterious. a night when spirits seem closer to our world. But for some, Halloween 2024 was more than just a celebration.
It was a night of real terror, where the veil between the living and the supernatural dissolved, and inexplicable events unfolded. These aren't just ghost stories. They are terrifying experiences lived by people like you, who now question what really exists beyond our perception.
Each of these tales digs deeper into the inexplicable, where disbelief meets fear and the boundaries of reality are tested. Prepare to be drawn into a world of the supernatural that might leave you too scared to sleep.
Let's begin our journey into the unknown. The strange disappearance in an abandoned asylum. The night was shrouded in mist when 5 friends ventured into the old asylum on Halloween night.
Known for its dark history, the asylum had long been abandoned, left to decay with whispers of tragic pasts still lingering in its halls. Armed with ghost hunting equipment, the group entered, eager to experience a brush with the supernatural.
The energy in the asylum shifted when the group reached the 2nd floor. Cold drafts and distant whispers that they couldn't explain unsettled them, but it was nothing compared to what was coming.
When Tom, one of the group members, wandered into a room alone, the others heard a deafening crash. They rushed to the room, but Tom was gone, without a trace.
His phone, which had been recording, was found on the floor, still running, capturing nothing but static.
Search efforts by the authorities turned up nothing. Tom's friends were left haunted by the disappearance, recounting the faint voices they heard, doors slamming, and the overwhelming feeling that something unseen was watching them. To this day, Tom has never been found. What happened in that asylum? Some say the spirits of the former patients claimed Tom, while others believe the building itself, steeped in dark history, had a curse of its own. For the friends who survived the night, the disappearance left them questioning whether they had ventured too far into the unknown.
The poltergeist party incident. A Halloween party in New Orleans took a dark turn when a simple party trick spiraled into chaos. The night began with laughter, costumes, and a Ouija board, brought out by the host as a fun, spooky activity for the guests. But as they gathered around the board, the lights flickered, and the temperature in the room dropped. At first, the group brushed it off as coincidence, but the energy in the room shifted dramatically as objects began to move on their own. Glasses tipped over without being touched, candles flickered and then snuffed out, and a heavy mirror hanging on the wall cracked, splitting down the center. Guests screamed and bolted for the door, fleeing into the night. The host later reported seeing a shadowy figure in the mirror just before it broke. News of the poltergeist party spread quickly, with many believing that the Ouija board had opened a portal to something malevolent. While skeptics argued it was a case of mass hysteria, those who witnessed the events insist it was something far more sinister. Paranormal investigators who visited the house afterward reported a strong energy presence, suggesting that whatever had been summoned was still lingering. Haunted house attraction turns real. In Ohio, a haunted house attraction became the site of a genuine paranormal event on Halloween night. The attraction, located in a building with a dark past, promised to be the most realistic haunted house experience of 2024. Guests signed waivers and entered, expecting an evening of jump scares and artificial frights. What they encountered, however, was much more terrifying.
I felt an intense cold as I walked through a hallway that wasn't part of the planned scare zones. Whispers echoed through the walls, and I saw shadows flit by that didn't belong to any of the actors. In one particularly terrifying moment, a guest fainted after witnessing a ghostly woman in an old-fashioned dress moving toward her. The figure vanished into thin air, leaving the staff and paramedics baffled.
The building, as it turns out, had a history of tragedy. Decades earlier, a fire had claimed the lives of several families who lived there, and it was rumored that their spirits still roamed the halls. After the incident, several guests refused to return, convinced that the haunted attraction had stirred something real within the building. In a quaint English town known for its charming Halloween parades, a ghostly figure joined the festivities in 2024. As the parade marched down the main street filled with costumed children and floats, one figure stood out. A tall person in a Victorian dress moving silently through the crowd.
At first, onlookers assumed it was part of the performance, but there was something unsettling about this figure. It never spoke, never interacted, and never seemed to be part of the organized event.
Several witnesses later claimed that the figure simply vanished as the parade reached the town square. There were no entrances or exits nearby, and no one seemed to know where the figure had gone. Multiple parade goers, including parents and children, described seeing the same thing. A woman in old-fashioned clothes who appeared out of nowhere and disappeared just as suddenly.
Rumors quickly spread, linking the figure to a local legend of a woman who had died tragically in the town over a century ago. Some believed that on Halloween night, she returned to walk the streets, forever looking for something, or someone, that she had lost.
When a Texas family purchased a second-hand Halloween costume for their son, they never expected it to come with a supernatural price. The costume, a simple pirate outfit, seemed like the perfect find. But as soon as their son, Billy, put it on, his behavior changed.
He became withdrawn, speaking in a low voice that wasn't his own, and started claiming that he could see people in the house that no one else could.
At first, his parents thought it was just an overactive imagination, but when Billy began speaking in an unrecognizable language and refusing to take off the costume, they grew worried. His mother tried to remove the outfit, but Billy screamed and fought her off.
That night, strange noises echoed through the house. Footsteps in the hallway, doors opening and closing on their own.
In a desperate attempt to end whatever was happening, the family burned the costume in their backyard. As the flames consumed the fabric, Billy returned to normal, unable to remember any of the events from earlier. The family later learned that the costume had been donated by a family whose child had died mysteriously a year earlier, though no one could say for sure whether the outfit was cursed. If you're enjoying the spine-chilling tales we're conjuring up this Halloween, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. After all, what better way to celebrate the season of the witch than by spreading the scares to your friends? Click that little bell icon, because trust us, you'll want to be notified when we unleash more terrifying tales that might just haunt your dreams or your next Halloween party. Plus, if you share this with your fellow thrill seekers, who knows? They might repay you with candy or at least a couple of ghost stories of their own. A group of teenagers in Massachusetts thought it would be fun to explore a local cemetery on Halloween night. The cemetery was old, forgotten, and reputed to be haunted. With flashlights and their phones for company, the teens ventured into the graveyard, laughing and joking about seeing ghosts. But as they ventured deeper into the cemetery, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew colder, and their laughter faded as they began to feel as though they were being watched.
It wasn't long before one of the teens, Jason, saw something in the distance, a tall, dark figure standing between the gravestones. The others brushed it off as a shadow, but when the figure began to move toward them, fear set in. The group ran, but Jason swore the figure was following them, disappearing and reappearing behind gravestones. That night, Jason experienced sleep paralysis for the first time. He awoke unable to move, with the same dark figure standing at the foot of his bed, watching him.
Paranormal investigators later suggested they had encountered a shadow person, a malevolent entity known for stalking its victims. Whether it was a trick of the mind or something more sinister, Jason hasn't been able to shake the feeling that the shadow man is still watching him. Seances are a classic Halloween tradition, but for one group of friends in Florida, their attempt to communicate with the dead went terribly wrong. The seance was held in an old mansion known for its haunted history. As they gathered around the table, candles flickering and hands joined, they began to call upon the spirits of the house. At first, it was typical seance fare, strange knocks, cold gusts of air, but then things escalated.
One of the participants, Lisa, began to convulse. Her voice changed, deep and unrecognizable, as she claimed to be the spirit of a woman who had died in the house years earlier. The others, terrified, tried to end the seance, but it seemed too late. The energy in the room had shifted into something dark and oppressive. Lisa has no memory of the events, but her friends are convinced that she was possessed by a malevolent spirit.
Paranormal experts later warned them that they had likely opened a door to something they couldn't control, and it had crossed over. Whether or not it was possession or psychological stress, the group swore off any future seances, knowing they had come far too close to the unknown. In a quiet neighborhood in Colorado, a young boy dressed as a ghost went trick-or-treating on Halloween night 2024. His parents, like many, thought nothing of it when their son ran ahead of them, heading toward an old run-down house on the corner of the street that was known for its creepy decorations. But when they reached the house, their son was gone. Neighbors reported seeing their son running toward the old house, but no one had seen him enter.
Panic set in as the parents called out for him, their voices echoing in the stillness of Halloween night. Neighbors gathered, and the atmosphere shifted from festive to fearful. The police were called, and a search began, but there were no signs of the boy.
Reports surfaced of strange sightings around the neighborhood. People dressed in ghostly attire disappearing into thin air, and children claiming they saw someone who looked like the boy walking down the street, laughing before vanishing. Hours turned into an agonizing night for the parents, who were left in despair as the search continued.
The old house became a focal point of the investigation, and locals whispered of its haunted past, of children who had gone missing over the decades. Despite their best efforts, the boy was never found, leaving a void in the community that many believe was the work of something sinister. In the weeks following Halloween, the house was left abandoned, but reports continued to surface about strange noises and flickering lights. Some neighbors claimed they saw the ghostly figure of a young boy playing in the yard, a chilling reminder that sometimes the line between life and death can become dangerously thin, especially on Halloween night. The stories shared here remind us that Halloween is more than just a holiday. It's a time when the veil between our world and the next is believed to be at its thinnest. From vanished friends and haunted parties to apparitions that join our celebrations, the tales of Halloween 2024 serve as a chilling reminder that sometimes our fascination with the supernatural can bring us face to face with something we cannot understand. These narratives resonate not only because of the fear they invoke, but also because they tap into our curiosity about what lies beyond our earthly existence. As we reflect on these true Halloween stories, we are left with an unsettling question. How much of the paranormal is mere myth, and how much is reality? As we delve deeper into the mysteries of the unknown, we must remember to tread carefully, because some doors, once opened, cannot be closed. This captivating essay not only explores chilling true stories from Halloween 2024, but also leaves viewers intrigued and eager for more. Each story is designed to stir curiosity and invite discussions on the supernatural, perfect for captivating an audience and potentially generating significant engagement.